Good morning, afternoon, evening, whenever you're watching this. I'm Garrett. This is the new Wincy show, and we have some really interesting topics today. There's been a lot of talk around college football, and I know that Wincinnati we're going all in Bengals, and I understand that, but my job as a student at the University of Alabama is to educate the people who aren't educated and to help show you guys some incredible stuff about the things that are happening in college football right now, especially with NIL deals, redistricting, you can say, for conferences, remapping the conferences. You have top fives, top tens, way too early, top 25s, all that stuff. And I'm going to give you my thoughts on how the new conference shapes are going to affect the next 5 years of college football and beyond. And I want to give you my top five in the way too early top five college football teams of the 2022-2023 season. And starting off, obviously, we all knew that Texas and Oklahoma, starting off with the SEC, are going to join the SEC very soon, and they do start in 2024 to join that conference, which is exciting to say the least, considering that me being a huge SEC school student and supporter, I've always loved SEC football. It just feels different. There's a different vibe, there's a different whatever, but it's something that you can't really understand until you get into it and dive into it. And I want to help people who don't necessarily watch SEC, a whole bunch of don't have a whole bunch of care about it. It's something that you have to kind of understand the significance of Texas and Oklahoma going there, because obviously with them in the Big 12, and yeah, it's a huge thing just in and of itself. I don't want to make that sound like it is only big to SEC people. Obviously, it's huge for all of college football because they're doing what the Big Ten is trying to do with UCLA and USC, which is basically make what soccer or football, European football, did, was try to create like a super league. And I think the Big Ten is, and frankly, every other college football school or organization, they're trying to catch up with the SEC, only knowing that we had a head start on Texas and Oklahoma. But some of the last 15 years have been dominated at least in BCS and college football playoff with SEC teams. I mean, 2021 Georgia, 2020, Alabama, 2019, LSU, and then you go back and you have 3 college football playoff, national championships go to Alabama, a couple go to other SEC teams, and then you have consistent bowl contending teams. And then on top of that, you had 2 historic franchises with Texas and Oklahoma. It's something that other college football schools and college football organizations have to look at and start to catch up with. And I don't tooting tooting anybody's horn too much, but it's something that is really interesting to see, and all this is because of NIL money. And if you don't know what NIL is, it's name, image, and likeness. And the NCAA always had a ban on making money off of name, image, and likeness, selling autographs, stuff like that. If you can remember Louisville and their stuff that happened with March Madness and their national championship in basketball, and a whole bunch of people at Ohio State when Urban Meyer was a coach. And obviously, me being at Alabama, I can't not say anything about how in the past we've had a reputation of possibly paying players, and I really don't like that. I'm not going to put anything on the spot, but it's hard to not think that any player at any school is going to get money somehow, not just through scholarships, but it's irrelevant to the situation. But either way, it's something that when NIL was first introduced, something where it's an opportunity for these kids to make money off of their name and not just through scholarship and maybe like a Pepsi or Coke deal through the school or whatever, something stupid. It's more of the partnerships that you see with professional athletes, especially in professional golf and NFL and MLB. You don't. I guess you see it in the NBA with shoes mostly, but it's it's still something where if you put your name on it and people are buying it, you get that money. And the NCAA always had a rule against it because I guess just because of the age or something like that. But either way, um, l- going more into this, all the NIL money that the SEC and SEC teams have, the other conferences are obviously trying to combat that by getting more bigger schools, hence UCLA and USC leaving the Pac-12 to go and beat up on Big Ten schools. And I love the historic matchup of USC versus Rutgers every year. Can't you just love seeing two oceans in one day just to watch a college football game at 11 a.m. and it's at whatever time in Southern California, 11 minus 4, 7 a.m. Do you love seeing your team play at 7 a.m.? Or 8 a.m., I guess, if it's a noon game, but it's something that's unprecedented, and it's something where you can see the footsteps and going into the future of college football. Obviously, Wincinnati, UC, is going to join the Big 12 very soon, and I think they're also going in 2024. But that is a huge shift, especially after their first appearance in the college football playoff playing Alabama. It's you already have your name out there. You go undefeated on the season prior to the playoff, and you're generating a bigger name for yourself. A whole bunch of people getting drafted this year. Alec Pierce to the Colts, obviously Sauce Gardner. Shout out Rich Eisen to the Jets. It's just it's huge to see all these reconference shifts and to show how much of an impact these schools are having on the future of college football just by trying to create their own separate super conferences. And it's essentially going to become something sort of like the NFL, where you might have like an AFC, NFC, but like SEC, Big 10, or SEC, Big 12, or Big 10, Big 12, just depending on how everything shakes up. But Power 5 conferences, I feel like are going to possibly cease to exist in the next 5 years, and it's something with thinking back to college football playoff, you're going to have to expand that to almost like an NFL-sized playoff bracket to where you have these super leagues in college football with a whole bunch of money and guaranteed money from name, image, likeness, and NIL money, but it's huge for sports in general, whether or not good or bad, and depending on how you look at it. But it's just really interesting to talk about and think about when it comes all down to it. But moving forward, staying in college this week, I want to go through top five. Way too early top five college football teams this year. Obviously, we haven't even seen anything from anyone really. Just recruiting classes and stuff like that. You can hear all this stuff from local news, which if you're not really paying attention, I don't really blame you. It's hard to pay attention to any sports in the off season, but obviously with the Cincinnati show, we are covering off season like a hawk. Anything that happens will happen and we will talk about it. But going into the way too early top 5 at number 5, I've gotta say it, I'm gonna go with USC. Lincoln Riley, Caleb Williams, you have motivation, obviously, they're talked about so much, and I think it's hard not to talk about it when it's something that huge, but you look at that team and you look at what they're building over there, especially now that you have Lincoln Riley under contract, and it's a huge, huge step for that team, especially after not really performing in the past five or so years. But it's really exciting to see. So going on to number 4, I have the Georgia Bulldogs, reigning national champions. And obviously, when you lose that many players, both on offensive and defensive sides, huge impact players, Jordan Davis, um, who else was the Bulldog that went in the first round? I'm totally blanking right now. I really do apologize. I feel like an awful college football intel person at the Wincinnati podcast network right now, and I will make sure to be more prepared next time. But when you lose so many people like that, it's hard to recover, but there's no way that you don't look at that team and think that they don't have people who were playing last year and playing almost starter snaps as sophomores and juniors coming back to the team and are able to perform and put on very, very, very good numbers. So it's something that you really I guess if you're a Georgia fan, you love to see it, but I don't think there's many Georgia fans listening to this podcast right now. But either way, going and moving on to number 3, I have the University of Cincinnati, and I know it's still not Power 5 team, and I don't want to seem like I am hopping on the train for the Cincinnati show, even though I really was hoping for a beatdown in the playoffs, which please don't blame me. It was something that as a student and as a fan, and my heart was telling me that it was something that I just had to do. And that's not going to take away from the fact that you lose a lot of starters, but you also gain a lot of knowledge knowing that you have put on that performance in the playoffs, and you do have a great coach in Luke Fickell. For as much as I hate to say all this stuff, it pains me to say it, but that they have a great program over there, and it's really hard to not look and see so much progression. Hopefully, they can continue to build on what they had last year. And moving forward to number 2, I have the Ohio State University Buckeyes. And if there was a team with as many returning players as the Ohio State Buckeyes, it it really would be a miracle because that team has now nothing but youth, but knowledge, and continuing with CJ Stroud, Jackson Smith and Jigba, he like all these people at Ohio State are continuing to build. Ryan Day is a great coach still, and the defense last year, even though in the Michigan game everyone watched that, but that was a rare occurrence. Their defense was absolutely solid for 95% of the regular season, and they honestly, in my opinion, have gotten screwed in these past couple years just with how everything tends to go down in e every as a former Ohio State Buckeye fan, everything kinda goes against the Buckeyes, which also tends to happen with my number 1 team, not to sound like a hothead bandwagon, but I do have the Alabama Crimson Tide. You go to the national championship game, and you're within a drive of winning that game. Uh, Pick 6 really just sealed it for Georgia. It was a dogfight till the end. We were expected not to have anything out of that team, and going to the national championship is something that not only brings the understanding and continuation of the youth of Will Anderson and Bryce Young and all of the new receivers that we're going to have in, which are very good. Please pay attention to Alabama wide receiver U and continue to look out for them. But it is huge, huge year for college football, huge future for college football. I really appreciate all of you guys tuning in and continue to listen and join me in these journeys. And I appreciate all of you. Please go shout me out. Twitter at New Wincy Show for the show and at New Wincy G for me. And just go tell me what you want to hear. Tell me what you're most excited for in these NFL and college football seasons. Tell me your tell me that my list is dumb or my list is great. Tell me what you think about the realignment of conferences, but please just go and interact and help me out. And I want to make the best content for you, and just like everybody else at the Wincinnati Podcast Network. So thank you so much. I appreciate all of you. Good morning, afternoon, and evening, and good night. Hoo day. Roll.